I and my twin sister are known as the twin mysterious maidens, one bringing prosperity and the other decline. In our previous life, my sister chose a husband with good fortune, attracting countless suitors. I, burdened with bad luck in marriage, was left unapproached. Later, the emperor bestowed upon me the title of Princess Shenzhou and arranged for me to marry into a foreign state as a political bride. After 10 years of enduring humiliation, I single-handedly disrupted 16 tribes of the foreign state, returning as a hero of the Great Yi Kingdom. While my elder sister brought prosperity to her husband but not to herself, her husband rose to the position of prime minister yet kept a harem of concubines, imprisoning her in a cold, desolate courtyard where she lived a life worse than death. On her deathbed, she clutched my hand. "Sister, if you could be reborn, would you choose a destiny that brings fortune to your husband?" Before I could respond, she passed away, filled with resentment. When I opened my eyes again, my sister and I had just reached the age of 15. As the director of the Imperial Astrology Bureau, our father was about to activate our Shen Nu destiny. My sister took the lead. "I choose the destiny of a failing husband." She approached me and whispered softly into my ear, "This time, I'll be the hero of Yi Kingdom, and you'll be the prisoner in the cold courtyard." I suddenly understood and raised an eyebrow with a smile. All right then, after all the bitterness of being married off, I truly don't want to endure a second time. I choose the fate of a sickly husband. Shu Ya's voice was firm, as if she had already made her calculations. Father slightly furrowed his brow. Ya, do you know what it means to have a declining husband's fortune?" "I know." Shu Ya raised her chin. "But I'm not afraid." She glanced at me, her gaze haughty. "I understand what she's thinking. If I can do it, she believes she can too." Father sighed. "Those who bear the burden of misfortune must endure all the hardships before they can finally taste the sweetness. You've never suffered since you were young. How could you endure it? Why not let her? Are you?" "Father," Shu Ya shook her head. "Trust me, I can do it." Mother looked at me hesitantly. Are you? Try to persuade your sister. She's not as strong as you. I'm afraid she'll suffer." By the end, her voice choked, and her heart ached with the urge to cry. The corners of my lips curved slightly. Their partiality couldn't be more obvious. In their previous life, the elder sister chose the fortune that would bring prosperity to her husband. My younger sister has always been able to endure hardships since she was a child. The fortune that brings misfortune to her husband suits her perfectly, so I won't compete with her for it. Her parents immediately nodded in agreement, not even bothering to ask for my opinion. You are serving the country with loyalty, and history will remember you." I endured humiliation and burdens in the northern vassal state for 10 years. I followed the vassal king, eating raw meat and drinking horse blood in the coldest months of winter. I still had to wash clothes with the herdsman, my hands freezing and covered in sores. I excel in embroidery, so I took the initiative to make robes and snow boots for the northern barbarian king and his consorts. I sleep for only 2 hours each day, never daring to slack off. When I feel distressed, I write letters home to the capital, but what I receive in return is not a comforting letter from home, but one from my father. "Every word and action of yours in Beifan reflects on the dignity of the court. Do not complain, do not beg for pity, and do not bring shame to your family." Eventually, I finally made it through. When the 16 tribes of the vassal state fell into chaos, I mediated between them, helping the court pacify the northern frontier without shedding a single drop of blood. On the day I returned to the capital, the streets were packed with people, and the emperor himself came to welcome me. I was bestowed the title of national hero and rewarded with 1,000 taels of gold. Now, reborn, Shu Ya has chosen the fate of a declining husband first. Does she think a declining husband is a path to happiness? That's fine if she wants it, then let her have it. I lowered my head, hiding the emotions in my eyes. "Father, Mother, you've always taught me since I was young to yield to my elder sister. Since my sister wishes to choose, let her choose." My parents choked up. They were about to speak again when they saw Shu Ya wave her hand. She stepped forward, took my arm, and smiled. "You're still the one who understands me best, sister." Helpless, Father sighed. "Since both of you sisters have no objections, let's proceed to open the altar and determine the fate." The news spread in just 3 days, and suitors began to flock to our residence in an endless stream. I chose the fortune that brings prosperity to my husband, so those who came to our door were all prominent families in the capital. Shu Yue chose the fortune that brings misfortune to her husband, so naturally, her doorstep remained cold and deserted. She wasn't in a hurry, spending her days in my courtyard, claiming to help me make decisions. Sister, how about I arrange a match for you? My heart skipped a beat. Mr. Xiao Mo, her eyes gleamed with malicious intent. His father is a lecturer at the Hanlin Academy, not from a particularly illustrious family, but Xiao Mo himself is truly a remarkable talent. Xiao Mo, he is indeed a remarkable figure in his previous life. After marrying Shu Yue, he rode her fortune to rise through the ranks, becoming a prime minister before the age of 40, yet he was also a heartless man, favoring his concubine over his wife, leaving Shu Yue in a cold, desolate courtyard to endure untold suffering. When Shu Yue finally perished, her beauty and spirit shattered, she was unrecognizable. Tormented beyond human form, I know she wanted me to taste the same bitterness she endured, so she arranged for me to follow in her footsteps. I didn't expose her intentions, merely replying with a calm indifference, "Let me think about it some more," but she wouldn't let it go. What's there to think about? With a family like that, if you wait, someone else will snatch him up. Sister, listen to me, just settle on him. She stood up directly. I'll go inform father, wait for my good news. I sat in place, not stopping her because stopping her would be useless. Both father and mother will listen to her. Not long after, the news arrived that my marriage had been arranged. I smiled bitterly. Indeed, they discussed matters, even those concerning my lifelong future, without seeking my opinion. Seeing my troubled expression, Shu Yue covered her mouth and chuckled softly. Sister, from now on, you will be part of the Xiao family. I sighed softly to myself. Shu Yue, oh Shu Yue, did you think marrying me off to Xiao Mo would make me repeat your mistakes? But you don't know. People in this world are ultimately different. A few days later, the imperial decree was issued. As in her previous life, Shu Yue was bestowed the title of Princess Shenzhou and chosen for a grand wedding to marry the northern barbarian king in a diplomatic marriage. Her parents were deeply troubled, but Shu Yue was overjoyed. This is wonderful. I will now be remembered throughout history, my name echoing through the ages. After calming down, she grabbed me firmly. Sister, help me pack my luggage. Just like you did in your previous life. Oh, she wants to directly copy my method. I smiled faintly and withdrew my hand. Sister, this is not appropriate. I pointed to my own house. I use wooden chopsticks and wooden bowls, while you have golden chopsticks and silver bowls. I wear silk and plain gauze, while you wear brocade and damask. How could I dare ask you to live as I do? Shu Yue wasn't buying it. She gave me a cold glance. Just write what you have to write, and I'll make the distinction myself. She lowered her voice. You wouldn't be trying to make things difficult for me, would you? Before I could even speak, she turned to tattle to our parents. Father, mother, our RU refuses to help me pack my luggage. My parents immediately got upset without asking for the full story. They yelled at me in anger. RRU, your sister gave you her luck for a prosperous marriage. You should be doing everything you can to help her, refusing to even pack her luggage. What kind of heart do you have? I let out a small sigh. Alright, I'll clean it up. Seeing my concession, Shu Yue smugly crossed her arms. Write another list of the Northern King's preferences, what he likes, what he avoids, everything clearly. That way, when I go, I can cater to his tastes and get the job done in one go. I looked up at her. She smiled openly, as if these words were the most natural thing in the world. Sister, the Northern Prince loves horseback riding and archery, but you can't do either. What's the point of me writing about it? Her smile stiffened slightly. Are you deliberately belittling me? I shake my head. I'm just telling the truth. Shu Yue's expression grew even more unpleasant. She glared at me, her eyes carrying a hint of ferocity. If you can do it, I refuse to believe I can't. Don't try any tricks. Just write properly. If you dare to deceive me. She didn't finish her sentence, but I understood. From childhood to adulthood, haven't I suffered enough? I didn't say anything more. I walked to the desk, picked up the brush, and began to write. What does the northern prince like? He likes raw mutton, the kind with blood streaks. He likes mare's milk wine, which is so sour it makes your teeth ache. I enjoy hunting, and I hang the skins in my tent to show off. What do I avoid? I avoid women who talk too much, women who don't listen, and women who cry in front of me as I write. I suddenly recall events from my previous life. The first time I met the northern barbarian king, he asked me to wash his feet. The smell was about the same as picking up sheep droppings in a sheep pen, but I didn't even wrinkle my brow. I knelt calmly on the sandy ground to help him remove his boots. He challenged me with a question, his eyes filled with amusement. Is it stinky? I know that answering this question poorly could cost me my life. The body of the maid who was dragged out and flogged to death just moments ago is still frozen in the snow. I lower my head. You are the hero of the 16 tribes of Bayfan. At the feet of a hero lie the bones of enemies, the sands of the prairie, and 1,000 miles of journey. I dried that foot and gently placed it to the side. These feet have walked countless roads for the great king, earning the golden tent of today. They are not foul, they carry a fragrance unmatched by others. The tent fell silent for a moment. Then he looked at me and smiled. What a sharp tongue, a Han woman, quite intriguing. I let him look, not flinching. Later, I survived Shu Ya knew nothing of these events. I folded the written paper and handed it to her. After reading it, Shu Ya satisfiedly tucked the paper into her sleeve. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned back, looking at me with profound meaning. Sister, I will watch you get married before I leave. Don't even think about running away. I knew she had to see me jump into that pit of fire before she could leave for Bayfan with peace of mind. I smiled. Sister, don't worry, I won't run away. Why should I run away? Is Xiao Mo scarier than the northern frontier king? If I could conquer the 16 tribes of the northern frontier, I can certainly take on the entire Xiao family. As the wedding day approaches, preparations for our dowries at home have begun in earnest. Mother called the two of us together. Are you, your dowry? Your father and I have discussed it. Her face showed a hint of unease. You bring good fortune to your husband, so the Xiao family will naturally treat you well. The dowry, just a token, will do. But your sister, she's going to the northern frontier, where it's harsh and cold. She needs to take more items for self-defense. In the previous life, they didn't say that. They said, your elder sister will be the face of the family in the future, so naturally, she should receive more dowry. You're going to the vassal state anyway, and it will just end up in the vassal state's pocket, so it's better not to bring anything. Of course, I didn't argue, I just nodded. Okay. Mother was taken aback, as if she hadn't expected me to agree so readily. Shu Ya also looked over, her eyes showing a hint of surprise. I spoke calmly. Mother, I don't mind how much dowry I receive, but I want one thing. I looked towards my father, who had been silent all along. I want father's compass. It was an old artifact from the Imperial Observatory, passed down through generations, said to be able to predict fortune and determine direction. Father usually treasures it dearly. No one is allowed to touch it. Sure enough, he frowned slightly. That thing. No, Shu Ya interrupted the conversation. That compass, I want it too. She looked at her father, her words firm and certain. I am marrying far away in the northern frontier, and I wish to keep something of my father's as a keepsake. She took a few steps closer and lowered her voice. That thing must be very useful, right? In your previous life, did you use it? I lowered my eyes and shook my head. Sister, you're overthinking. She didn't believe it. My strange behavior must have been unusual. I took a step back and looked at my mother. Since my sister wants it, I won't compete. I paused, my gaze falling on my mother's head. Can I have mother's silver hairpin? Mother paused, taken aback. She touched the hairpin in her hair, took it out, and looked at it. This was passed down by your grandmother. She said it was a gift from the previous emperor, but the emperor gave out so many things, it's not worth much. Shu Ya took it and examined it thoroughly from all angles. It's just a hairpin, suspicious by nature. She refused to let it go. I sighed softly. If sister also wants it, then I'll just take the night pearl from home. Shu Ya immediately glared. The night pearl? That's the Shu family heirloom. How dare you even think of it? She handed me the silver hairpin. Fine. You can have this one. I tucked the hairpin away, feeling a slight sense of relief. This was exactly what I wanted. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived, and Shu Ya was even more excited than I was. Just before I got into the sedan chair, she grabbed my hand and whispered in my ear, "Sister, your good days are about to begin." I smiled faintly. "Sister, you had such a miserable life in the Xiao household in your previous life. Aren't you worried that I'll follow in your footsteps?" She paused slightly, then gave a concerned smile. "You've been used to hardship since you were young. You'll be able to endure it." I smiled in response. "So, you knew that entering the Xiao family would mean suffering, yet you still sent me there." Shu Ya shook her head, her eyes filled with disdain and coldness. "Sister, how can you think that way? I am your elder sister. Of course I have to plan for your future. Look at Minister Xiao, he's so handsome and dignified. He's more than enough for you." I could hear the pride in her words. My fate was in her hands, completely at her mercy. "It doesn't matter, I have my ways to turn the crisis into safety." 3 days later, on the day of returning to our parents' home, Xiao Mo and I went back to the Shu residence together. Shu Ya hadn't left yet. She was waiting specifically for us. As soon as we entered, she came up to me, took my hand, and looked me up and down. "Sister, you look well." She smiled, but her eyes carried a scrutinizing gaze. I nodded. "The Xiao family has treated me well, and Xiao Mo is very kind." Xiao Mo stood to the side, respectfully bowing to his father and mother. Shu Ya looked at him, a peculiar glint flashing in her eyes. "Young Master Xiao, my sister has a destiny that brings prosperity to her husband. You must treat her well in the future." Xiao Mo glanced at me, his smile gentle and warm. Naturally, Shu Ya stopped smiling, her expression growing increasingly stiff. During the meal, she kept her eyes fixed on both me and Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo served me food, poured me tea, and did everything perfectly without a flaw. Shu Ya's complexion grew increasingly worse. In her previous life, she hadn't received such treatment. Back then, she had just married into the family and wanted to play the part of a virtuous wife. At the dining table, she diligently served Xiao Mo, placing dishes and picking up food for him. Xiao Mo enjoyed himself leisurely, showing no intention of reciprocating her. After the meal, Shu Ya pulled me close to her side. "What tricks did you pull? Why does Xiao Mo obey you so unquestioningly?" Her eyes burned with jealousy. I smiled faintly. "Sister, our married life is harmonious and loving. Isn't that wonderful?" Shu Ya was slightly taken aback, stammering, But Xiao Mo isn't the type to be so attentive." I smiled. "People do change." Shu Ya clenched her fists tightly, thinking of something, then immediately revealed a smile. "You're right, people do change, but it's still early days." I smiled calmly and didn't say much. After lunch, we saw her off at the door. Her convoy was parked outside the mansion, loaded with a dozen full carts of goods. Father and mother stood at the door, holding her hand and giving her words of advice. I stood to the side and spoke. "Sister, I hope you turn misfortune into fortune on your journey." She turned her head, her eyes carrying a cold smile. "Don't worry about me, worry about yourself." She looked at Xiao Mo, then at me, her eyes filled with intense jealousy. "Within half a year, he will definitely take a concubine. Your good days are still far from over." I met her gaze, smiling faintly. "Sister, you should worry about yourself first. Those people like to eat raw meat and don't bathe for a month. You'll have to get used to it when you go there." Shu Ya's face turned pale before she could speak. I took a step back and glanced at the sky. "The auspicious time has come. Sister, it's time for you to depart." Shu Ya twitched the corner of her mouth. "You can be jealous. I'm going to be a hero of the Great Yi Kingdom soon." She boarded the carriage, and the convoy slowly began to move. I stood at the entrance of the mansion, watching the carriages grow farther and farther away, eventually disappearing at the end of the long street. The wind blew, carrying the distinctive fragrance of flowers in March. "It smells wonderful." But Shu Ya can't smell it anymore. After 2 full months of grueling travel, she finally arrived in Beifan. If I had known Beifan was this far, I wouldn't have come. I haven't slept well the entire journey. She had lost a full circle of weight, her body utterly exhausted. Her maidservant helped her down from the carriage. The procession sent to receive her was sparse, consisting of only a dozen or so people. I, the princess, have come personally for this marriage alliance. Where is the vassal king? Why hasn't he come to greet me?" She was holding back a breath, clearly displeased. The northern frontier envoy smiled faintly. "Neither servile nor overbearing, Princess Shenzhou. According to the laws of the northern frontier, you should first pay your respects to the great king." Xu Huaiye frowned. "I, the princess of the great Yi kingdom, born as a mysterious maiden, have come to bring blessings to your northern frontier. Should I really be the one to pay respects first?" The envoy for the wedding was momentarily stunned, a hint of sharpness flashing across his eyes. The maidservant quickly tugged at her sleeve. "Princess, I've read Miss Xu Yu's manual, and she said we should follow local customs." "Perhaps," Xu Huaiye snorted coldly. "What is her status, and what is mine? How can I be the same as her?" Her gaze carried resentment. "I knew it all along. She doesn't want me to have an easy time." She deliberately wrote the opposite. "As the princess of the great Yi kingdom, you bow and scrape like a little palace maid. If you don't hold yourself with dignity, how will you ever have a good life?" She revealed an expression of complete control. "If I really do as she says, then I'd be falling into her trap." She pointed at the marriage envoy, her manner domineering. "Is the room ready? This princess needs to rest. When this princess has rested, have your king come to see me." The envoy remained expressionless and nodded. "Then I shall report this as is." She waved her hand, urging him to leave quickly. At this moment, all she wanted was to hurry into the tent and rest properly. As soon as she entered the tent, her face darkened again. "What do you mean? Is this it?" She placed her hands on her hips. The wife of a noble prince living in such a humble place, not even as good as the old Shu residence. "Go, send someone to find the prince. I must have an explanation. This is clearly an attempt to humiliate me." Suddenly, a loud shout came from outside, as if a thunderclap had exploded from the heavens. "No need to go, I have come in person." Xu Huaiye turned around and was instantly dumbfounded. The felt door of the tent flipped up, and a massive figure wobbled in. The northern barbarian king was indeed too tall. Describing him as a 7-foot giant would not be an exaggeration. His face was full of menacing flesh, his eyes squinted into slits, yet they gleamed with a wolf-like ferocity. He wore a heavy fur robe, a curved saber at his waist, his entire body resembling a moving hill. Xu Huaiye's knees suddenly gave way. She instinctively took half a step back, only to be steadied by the maid behind her. Unable to move, the prince grinned, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth, with bloody meat fibers stuck between them. "What explanation does the princess seek from me?" Xu Huaiye opened her mouth, but no words came out. After a long while, she finally spoke slowly. I find this place a bit crude, but it has its own unique charm." She managed a faint smile, which looked more like a grimace than anything else. The prince chuckled and reached out to pinch her chin. "I hear that Han women are the most virtuous. Come, I have 16 personal guards. You will wash their feet one by one." A dozen burly men immediately entered from outside, each with bare chests and bulging muscles. Boom! Xu Huaiye's mind exploded. "You, what did you say?" She found it hard to believe and after a long pause, managed to utter a sentence. "I am the princess of the great Yi kingdom, and also your royal consort." The feudal lord laughed heartily, his chest jiggling with each laugh. "A princess, you say? Once you're in my domain, you'll follow my rules." He waved his hand, and a servant immediately brought over a basin of hot water. "Come, first wash for this king." Xu Huaiye stood still, feeling both angry and embarrassed. From childhood to adulthood, she had never suffered such humiliation. "What, unwilling?" The northern prince raised his eyes, his gaze fierce. "In our land, those who have no value are only fit to be served on a plate." As soon as the words left his mouth, a servant entered carrying a large platter of raw meat. "The princess hasn't eaten yet, have a try." It was an arm of a captured soldier, the flesh still twitching slightly. Xu Huaiye couldn't hold it in any longer and vomited directly. The northern prince frowned, his face showing clear displeasure. "How utterly boring." He stood up and looked at his personal guards. "She's yours to enjoy." He stood up to leave, and Xu Huaiye, frightened, quickly grabbed his sleeve. "Your Majesty, I am your concubine, a noble lady. How could you bestow me upon a servant?" She trembled all over in fear, tears falling in rapid succession. The king of Beifan detested weepy women the most, and seeing this only added to his annoyance. A useless concubine, yet with a noble status. In my eyes, you are inferior to anyone here. He disdainfully yanked his sleeve away. I have 35 royal consorts, and you rank 36th. Tomorrow, you will wash their feet one by one. He didn't spare her another glance and walked away directly. Shu Wei stumbled and fell to the ground, trembling as she cried out, "No, my lord, I was wrong. Please don't leave, my lord, don't give me to the servants, I won't dare again." However, no one paid any attention to her that night. The wind howled across the northern frontier. The candlelight in the tent burned all night long. 3 months later, the family finally received a letter from Shu Wei. Father held the letter, his hands trembling violently. Mother glanced at a few lines and fainted on the spot. I took it and unfolded it. It was a letter written in blood. Shu Wei's handwriting was crooked and uneven, as if it had been written with a bitten finger. The northern prince is cold-blooded and ruthless. On the first day of our marriage, he bestowed me upon his personal guards. Your daughter lives in a sheep pen, eats sheep feed, and everyone can bully me, no different from an animal. Now all of your daughter's dowry has been confiscated, leaving me penniless. I secretly kept a few pieces of jewelry, exchanged them for some silver, and managed to have this letter sent out. Father, mother, please save your daughter, for I truly feel that life is worse than death. I folded the letter neatly and placed it back on the table. Shu Wei's fate was indeed worse than mine in my previous life. No wonder with her temperament. It was a miracle she survived that day. Father could no longer sit still, pacing back and forth in the room. I need to go to the palace. I must see the emperor. I picked up the teacup and took a slow sip. Father, the emperor won't intervene. Father suddenly stopped in his tracks, glaring at me. What did you say? Sister is going to Beifan as an imperial bride. I set down the teacup. The emperor's decree is for her to overthrow the vassal state. Since she has not fulfilled her mission, the emperor will not allow her to return. Father's face turned crimson. You are heartless. That is your own sister. Mother also woke up, steadying herself by the table as she stood up and pointed at me, scolding. Are you? How could you say such a thing? Your sister is suffering over there, while you enjoy yourself here. Do you have no conscience? Hearing these words, I slowly stood up. In my previous life, when I went to the northern frontier, I also wrote letters home. However, they only wrote back once. Every word and action of yours in Beifan reflects on the dignity of the court. Do not complain, do not beg for pity, and do not bring shame to the family. At the time, I thought they were burdened with national righteousness, forcing me to endure humiliation for compromise. Later, I returned to the capital. I only learned that father had never reported this matter to the emperor. Facing my questioning, he spoke with certainty. You were originally sent to marry for the sake of the country, so you should be prepared to endure hardships. How could I possibly risk displeasing the monarch for your sake? At that time, I understood. They were more than just biased. They didn't care about my life or death at all. Now that my sister is in trouble, they are in a panic. I didn't want to say any more and pulled Xiao Mo away. Are you? Father called me. You are the Xian Yu. The Empress Dowager favors you. You will go to the palace with me. I will meet the emperor, and you will plead with the Empress Dowager for help. With that, he grabbed my hand and started to leave. I steadied myself and pushed him away. Father was taken aback, then furrowed his brow and glared. Hurry up, or we'll miss the palace gates. My tone was calm. I won't go. Father and mother were stunned. What? I repeated myself again. I won't go. The Empress knows the Emperor's heart best. She won't go to persuade him. Father, I advise you not to go either. Don't upset the Emperor. Father was furious and shouted loudly. How can you know without trying? Your sister gave you her fortune to bring prosperity to your husband. Otherwise, it would be you suffering now. Absurd. She always chose first, driven by selfish motives every time. I didn't want to talk to them any longer. So I turned and took Xiao Mo's arm. Let's go home. My parents were furious and tried to stop me, but Xiao Mo shielded me with a firm grip. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, Awan makes sense, I hope. You too can understand. Moreover, it was Miss Shu who chose the fate first. Her experiences are the result of her own choices, not related to our RU. Don't use morality to pressure her. His words were so righteous and imposing that they left the two elders speechless. I glanced at him suddenly. I felt that this life's Xiao Mo seemed a bit more pleasing than the previous one when I think back to our wedding night 5 months ago. As Xiao Mo lifted the bridal veil, I looked at his face and felt absolutely nothing. The man I faced was not a deeply affectionate husband, but a partner in need of negotiation. If we could strike a good deal, both of us would win. If I lose the negotiation, it's a dead end for both of us. However, I know he is a smart man. Negotiating with a smart person requires being straightforward. I took out the silver hairpin I had been clutching in my hand and looked at him intently. Young Master Xiao, let's set some rules first. Xiao Mo looked at me, his eyes flickering with a hint of surprise. What rules? I stared at him, enunciating each word clearly. I want you, a couple for life, never taking concubines. I stood up and moved closer to him. I know, before I entered the household, you already had 3 personal maids. From tomorrow onwards, send them away, and never take on new ones. I raised the hairpin, aiming it at my own throat. I am telling you this today. I am the prosperity goddess, and marrying you is not just about you as an individual, but also about the honor of both families and the future of our lineage. If you ever dare to be disloyal to me, I will stab myself to death. Xiao Mo's expression changed. Wife, why must you go to such lengths? I have no intention of taking concubines. If you dislike those maids, I can simply sell them off to an agent. I waved my hand. I'm just preparing for the future, good or bad. I want to make it clear, since I've joined the Xiao family, I will help you succeed, but I have a high-spirited nature and am not a puppet to be manipulated by others. This silver hairpin was bestowed by the late emperor. If you betray me, I will break this royal gift and stab myself to death, leaving a clean end. In the Great Yi Kingdom, suicide was already a crime, and committing suicide by defiling a royal gift was considered an act of treason. Treason would implicate the entire family, and in severe cases, it could extend to the 9 generations of ancestors. Xiao Mo remained silent. He stared at me for a long time, his gaze gradually growing complicated. Madam, what do you want me to do? I set the hairpin down. You write a guarantee, no concubines, no prostitutes, no neglect of the main wife. If you break any of these, I will stab this hairpin into my own throat. By then, your entire Xiao family will have to accompany me in death. Xiao Mo looked at me for a long while before suddenly smiling. In that smile, there was a hint of appreciation and admiration. Madam, you are quite different from what I had imagined. He picked up the pen and quickly wrote out the guarantee letter. I carefully tucked the paper away, placing it back on the dressing table along with the hairpin. Young Master Xiao, from now on, we are husband and wife. You show me an inch of respect, and I'll show you a foot. For the rest of our lives, please, guide me well. From that night on, we were not only husband and wife but also equal allies. This feeling is quite pleasant. At the very least, I feel at ease. The carriage slowly made its way, passing through 2 streets. When the sound of hurried hoofbeats came from behind, I lifted the carriage curtain and saw a squad of imperial guards galloping past, heading towards the direction of the Grand Astrologer's residence. Xiao Mo saw it too and spoke softly. Father-in-law is probably... I didn't speak. The next day, news arrived. Father went to the palace to meet the emperor, pleading for the return of Princess Xianzhu. The emperor was furious, reprimanding him for being ungrateful and ignorant of state affairs, ordering him to return home and reflect deeply. When my father was expelled from the palace, even his official cap fell off. Hearing this news, I continued to embroider my handkerchief. Xiao Mo asked me, "You truly won't help your sister?" I smiled faintly. "Take care of yourself first." He looked puzzled. I added, "They won't let me go." Xiao Mo understood. "Wife, your husband will protect you." I smiled. I believe not for the sake of emotion, but for the sake of interest. He would protect me. Half a month later, my father and mother indeed came to our door. Father looked much older than half a month ago, with most of his hair turned white and the wrinkles on his face deepened. Mother sat beside him, her eyes swollen as if she had been crying. Are you? Save your sister, she's dying." I was puzzled. How do you want me to save her? She wiped away her tears. Arya has written again. She says you have memories of your past life, that you lived in the vassal state for 10 years and returned safely. Then think of a way to save her. Even if you can't bring her back right now, at least let her suffer less. I smiled softly. Mother, do you know how I survived my previous life? She froze. I spoke slowly. I washed the feet of the feudal lord for 3 years. When he was pleased, he rewarded me with a meal. When he was displeased, he had someone whip me. I ate raw meat with him, not daring to vomit, until eventually, I could eat raw organs without flinching. I accompanied him on hunts, running through the snow all day in the coldest months, until my hands and feet were covered in frostbite. I looked into my mother's eyes. Do you think sister can do it? Mother's face turned pale. You knew this all along. Why didn't you tell her sooner? I looked directly at her and smiled lightly. Why should I say it? If I say it and she believes me, the one sent to marry into the enemy's family will be me. Mother was taken aback. Arya was pampered since childhood and truly couldn't endure that kind of hardship. But you're different. You've been able to endure hardship since you were young. So what? I interrupted her. Because I endured hardship since childhood. Does that mean I have to endure this suffering for all eternity? She froze, her head lowered. Unable to say yes, I smiled, my eyes stinging slightly. Father, Mother, I wasn't born to suffer. It's your favoritism that has made me endure so much pain. I waved my hand dismissively. I will remember your nurturing kindness, but there's no need to say more. Mother's face turned crimson. Are you? It's not that. I interrupted her again. There's something you need to understand. Xiao Mo and I are now a second-rank official and a second-rank official's wife. You should know who you'll be relying on in the future. With that, I set down the teacup. Show them out. They exchanged glances, then left reluctantly. Father's letter was finally sent out. I didn't see what was written in it, but I could guess it was nothing more than urging Shu Ya to endure, following the methods I used back then, and enduring through these years. On this day, it happened to be Mother's birthday. Xiao Mo was busy with official duties, so I took the gift and returned to the Shu residence first. Mother was especially warm, holding my hand and asking about my well-being. Father was also there, his complexion much better than before, and he even poured me a cup of tea during dinner. Mother kept piling food onto my plate. Arwan, we really did wrong by you before. Please don't take it to heart. Her eyes reddened. Your sister has always been in poor health, and she does know how to act spoiled, so we naturally paid more attention to her. And you're so proud, so stubborn, always keeping everything bottled up inside. We thought you didn't care about anything. She wiped away her tears. Enough of that. Enough. Today is a happy day. Let's have a few more drinks. Just the two of us. I smiled and agreed, but my chopsticks barely moved. I heard that sister has written back again. How is she? The tears in Mother's eyes couldn't be contained, falling relentlessly. She said she can't endure 10 years, not even 10 months. She's pregnant, but the father of the child, she doesn't even know who he is. The prince doesn't care about her at all. She's pregnant and still has to work, washing the feet of the princesses. Her mother couldn't continue and covered her face, crying. Her father also sighed deeply. If she doesn't come back soon, she'll die over there. He looked at me with a complex expression in his eyes. Are you? Can you really bear to do this? I laughed. Father, you are the head of the Imperial Observatory, and even you have no solution. What can I, a mere mistress managing the household, possibly do? Father stared at me, his gaze resolute. As long as you're willing, you'll find a way. I felt there was no need to continue the conversation, so I stood up to leave. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit my forehead. I leaned on the table, wanting to call for help, but my throat felt blocked, unable to make a sound. Mother pressed her hand on my shoulder, her voice choked with emotion. Are you? I'm sorry about this. Now, only by replacing someone can we save your sister. Father nodded as well, supporting me. You look exactly like your sister. The prince won't be able to tell the difference. With the experience of your past life, you will surely turn danger into safety and return in peace. I struggled fiercely, trying to push them away, but my hand slipped, and I collapsed in a heap. When I woke up, I found myself lying in a carriage. I struggled to sit up, but my hands and feet were bound, leaving me unable to move. Awake, I turned my head. The dowry nanny sat in the corner of the carriage. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. Where are we going? To Bayfan. Nanny Lee let out a cold laugh. Haven't you been there before, you know? The way, so why ask? My heart sank. They really made their move, however. I wasn't panicking before I got married. I left my personal maid, Xiao Kui, at the Shu residence 3 days ago. She secretly came to see me. Miss, something's wrong. I heard the old madam say she wants to replace someone. Only then did I realize that this birthday banquet was a feast of treachery. Now that she sees me drugged, she will definitely go and inform Xiaomo now. It all depends on whether Xiaomo can arrive in time. The carriage continued for another half hour before suddenly stopping. A commotion could be heard outside. Auntie Lee's face changed, and she lifted the carriage curtain to look outside. No sooner had she poked her head out than she was yanked out by someone. The carriage curtain was lifted, and Xiaomo's voice came through. Madam. I breathed a sigh of relief. I was saved. Things have escalated. The director of the Imperial Observatory conspired with foreign powers, attempting to replace the chosen consort with a sham. This is a grave act of treason. The emperor was furious and ordered my father's position to be stripped. Through Xiaomo's intervention, my father was spared from execution. Instead, he was sentenced to exile 3,000 miles away, with his mother accompanying him before leaving. They wanted to see me one last time. I refused. It was nothing more than regret for pleading for mercy, nothing more than asking me to continue to mediate for Shu Ya. What else could they possibly say that was sincere? A month later, the news from the Shu family finally reached the northern frontier. Upon hearing it, Shu Ya completely fell apart. The only hope she could rely on was gone. She collapsed in the sheep pen, wildly beating her own stomach. Bitch, Shu Jun, you bitch, why? Why does it have to be me again, the one who suffers the most? Between her legs, bright red blood was left behind, yet, as if she felt no pain, she continued to wildly strike herself. Heaven, it's unfair. This is so unfair. Later, she fainted and lost consciousness. The doctor came to see her, gave her an abortion medicine, and then left. The next day, Shu Ya woke up as if nothing had happened. I want to see the king. The northern king has arrived. Shu Ya kneels and kisses his snow boots. Your Majesty, please show me your kindness. I will serve you well. That night, the northern king took her back to his tent, but the next day, an urgent message arrived by carrier pigeon from the northern territories. Princess Xianzhu was dead. She had perished together with the northern king. The urgent message stated that Princess Xianzhu, while the northern barbarian king was asleep, stabbed him in the throat with a dagger hidden under her pillow. I won't live, and you'll all die with me. The northern barbarian king awoke with a start, delivering a powerful punch to her head, killing her on the spot. Due to the severity of the wound, the northern barbarian king also succumbed, passing away the next morning. Now that the eldest son of the feudal lord has ascended the throne, he has brought the 16 tribes of the northern fiefdom, demanding an explanation from the Great Yi Kingdom. In the Golden Hall, the emperor threw the urgent memorial to the ground. The Shu family has trained such a fine Xian maiden. This is not helping the nation. This is trying to bring the entire Great Yi Kingdom to ruin. The entire court of civil and military officials stood in silence, as if holding their breath when Xiao Mo came back to tell me about this. His face was not looking good. Madam, the emperor might be seeking to hold your father accountable. I remained silent, not speaking. Father has already been exiled. What more can be done to him? And the lesser issue is the accusation. The greater concern is the war between the two nations. If the matter involving Shu Ya leads to widespread suffering and destruction, then the Shu family would truly be the culprits of history. The next day, I took the initiative to enter the palace and request an audience with the emperor. I presented a map of the northern Han territories, which I had drawn based on memories from my previous life. Your Majesty, with the death of the northern vassal king, his eldest son Azam has ascended the throne. As far as I know, Azam was born to the third concubine of the northern vassal king. His abilities and lineage are not enough to gain the loyalty of the 16 tribes of the vassal state. In contrast, the second son, Azaking, born to the great consort, is only 12 years old but exceptionally intelligent, and he is deeply favored by the 16 tribes. The emperor's expression grew complicated, but he remained silent, listening intently to what I had to say. Among these 16 tribes, 4 are loyal only to the northern vassal king, while the other 12 each harbor their own schemes and have long harbored ambitions to declare themselves kings. Now that Azam has rallied people under the guise of avenging his father, their sharp blades are all pointed towards our great Yi kingdom, but we can divide and conquer, stirring up internal strife among them. The crisis of the great Yi kingdom can be resolved without lifting a single soldier or weapon. Xiao Mo, listening from the side, was utterly shocked. It was as if he were seeing me for the first time. His gaze burning with intensity, I continued speaking. First, we will win over Azharking and support him in seizing the throne. Then, we will incite the other 12 tribes to declare themselves kings. As Azharking ascends the throne at a young age, to secure his position, he will undoubtedly rely on our dynasty for years to come. I pointed at the map. If everything goes smoothly, our dynasty can take the opportunity to reclaim the northern vassal state. At the very least, both sides can coexist peacefully for 10 years. Even in the worst-case scenario, the current crisis can be resolved. I took out another stack of detailed documents. This document records the characteristics and appearances of the leaders of the 16 tribes, as well as their residential camps. This one shows the current military strength and border defense distribution of the 16 tribes. This one details the influence of the 35 concubines of the northern king, their weaknesses, and their children under their names. After reading, the emperor narrowed his eyes and asked me, "How did you obtain these top-secret documents?" I smiled. If I said I was reborn, would Your Majesty believe me? The emperor pondered for a moment, then nodded. I believe you. In my previous life, I chose the path of a declining husband, and it was I who went far away to marry into another family. I recounted the circumstances of my previous life in great detail. Xiao Mo listened, revealing an expression of realization and admiration. The emperor's gaze was intense, his eyes filled with affirmation. You are far cleverer than your sister. You are the true-born Xian Nu. He immediately made the decision to carry out my suggestion in secret. Later, the crisis in the northern faction was resolved. Internal strife within the faction led to several forces vying for power and profit. I played the mediator, winning over one group, suppressing another, and dividing yet another. After half a year, I finally ensured Azharking's position was secure. Grateful beyond measure, he voluntarily petitioned the court, requesting to remain a vassal state and to pay annual tribute. The emperor was overjoyed, bestowing upon me the title of Lady Jiaoyi and rewarding me with 1,000 taels of gold and 100 hectares of fertile land, and thus, I became a hero of the great Yi kingdom. Eternal fame, everlasting glory. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The young prince couldn't even draw the bow on the training ground, and the Duke of the State flew into a rage there. Are you a good-for-nothing, unable to excel in either literature or martial arts? The eldest son, feeling wronged, reddened his eyes. Mother said that forcing children to study is inhumane, and everyone has the right to grow up happily. The Duke stormed off with a flick of his sleeve. Standing under the eaves, I gazed at the good-for-nothing product of the matron's happy education, my eyes devoid of any emotion. Turning around, I made my way to my own son's study. He sat upright, the corners of the book in his hands worn ragged, his knuckles covered in scars from practicing the sword. Mother, why doesn't big brother study or practice martial arts? The son asked. I stroked his head, because his mother is a naive fool, thinking herself from the 21st century, where everyone is supposedly equal. She believed she could raise her child as a free bird in this predatory feudal society. In the feudal aristocracy, holding a high position yet being mediocre is a capital offense. Paysian looked at me, a flicker of confusion crossing his clear, black and white eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. He lowered his head and continued to plot the military route on the sand table. Mother, it's time to eat. Finish reciting this chapter of the *strategies of the warring states * before you eat. I sat to the side, stitching a shoe sole with fine, meticulous needlework. Pei Zhen recited without a single word of complaint, his voice clear and strong. A cheerful commotion came from outside the window beyond the courtyard wall. The maids and servants from Su Molly's courtyard had gathered in a circle, accompanying the 15-year-old young master Pei Cheng in a game of hawk-catching chicks. Su Molly's laughter was the loudest. Run faster, Chenga. You need to learn to unleash your nature. Don't mind your father, that old stick in the mud. Childhood should be carefree. I picked up the hot tea by my side and took a sip. Pei Zhen's hand, holding the military book, paused for a moment, and he turned his head to look out the window, his eyes flashing with a look of extreme disdain. I set down the teacup, my voice slightly lowered. What are you looking at? Have you memorized the formations from the military texts? Pei Zhen immediately withdrew his gaze, straightening his back. Yes, mother, I have memorized them. In the Battle of Changping, Zhao Kui's reliance on theoretical knowledge without adaptability led to the complete annihilation of the 400,000-strong Zhao army. I nodded. Remember this lesson. In this duke's mansion, in this capital city, occupying a high position without real strength will lead to the same fate as those 400,000 soldiers. Others may indulge in pleasure, but you cannot. You are a concubine's son, and your life, as well as my life, depends on you carving out a path to survival through the sword, spear, and classics. Pei Zhang nodded firmly, his young face showing a determination far beyond his years. I understand, father, I will practice this sword technique 100 more times today. I stood up, took the golden wound medicine from the side, and carefully applied it to the sword wound on his hand. The powder stung, but Pei Zhen remained silent, not even wrinkling his brow. That woman, Su Molly, completely changed after waking up from a serious illness 5 years ago. She dismissed the teaching matrons in the courtyard, burned Pei Cheng's 4 books and 5 classics, and even forbade the servants from kneeling before her. She said that everyone was an equal worker, and no one was born inferior to others. She also treated the duke's estate as her playground for playing house. With Pei Yuan constantly away on military campaigns and the old lady at the Wutai Mountains practicing Buddhism, no one in the estate could reign in this mistress of the house. She would boldly take Pei Cheng down to the river to catch fish and up trees to pluck birds' nests, all under the noble guise of quality education. The servants snickered behind her back. I, however, strictly ordered the people in my courtyard that anyone who dared to take a second glance or utter a single word would be immediately sold off. The most terrifying thing in this world is not a bad person, but a foolish one who is unaware of their own stupidity and insists on dragging others down with them. At dinner time, Duke Pei Yuan rarely returned to the mansion for a meal in the main hall. The atmosphere was oppressively low. Pei Yuan was dressed in casual attire, with a short blade at his waist, exuding the chilling aura of one who had survived countless battles. He glared at Pei Cheng, who was sitting across from him, eating a chicken leg with his bare hands in a completely unruly manner, his face ashen. A 15-year-old boy should be at an age where he is elegant and well-mannered, but Pei Cheng was eating with his mouth smeared with grease, even casually wiping his oily fingers on his brocade robe. Chenga, eat slowly, don't choke. This fried chicken was specially prepared by the small kitchen at mother's request for you. Su Molly, with a loving expression, handed him a handkerchief and turned to look at Pei Yuan, her tone carrying a hint of reproach. Don't always wear that cold expression, you'll scare the child. Cold violence from the original family has a great impact on the child's mental health. Pei Yuan took a deep breath, suppressing his anger. He's 15 already. Next year he should join the Imperial Guards. He doesn't even know how to hold chopsticks properly, in front of the Emperor. Would that not bring shame to our Pei family? Su Molly rolled her eyes dismissively. Rules, rules, it's always about rules. All those formalities are just feudal relics. Chenga is an independent person. He has the right to choose his own way of eating. Besides, your so-called Imperial Guards, always standing watch, have no creativity at all. Chenga won't go there. You. Pei Yuan slammed his hand down on the table in anger, causing the dishes to rattle. Parents' love for their children is about planning for their long-term future. I don't expect him to bring glory to the family, But at least he must be able to protect himself and stand on his own. He can't even read a few characters, can't draw a bow, and can't ride a horse steadily. What does he have to inherit the title of the Duke of the State? Pei Cheng was startled by the sound of the table being slammed and quickly dropped his chicken leg, hiding behind Su Moling. Mother, father is so scary. I don't want to talk to him anymore. I want to go back to the courtyard to play with mud. I haven't finished making that castle you taught me to mold yesterday. Su Moli protectively shielded her son and shouted at Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan, you're nothing but a brute. You don't understand respecting a child's interests and hobbies. Clay modeling is also an art. In 360 trades, each has its master. Why must you force him to become a warrior? Pei Yuan's chest heaved violently with anger, his finger pointing at Sumo Lee. Unable to utter a single word for a long time, I sat quietly to the side, ladling a bowl of soup for Pei Zhen. Pei Zhen accepted it with both hands, placing it on the table, then stood up and respectfully bowed to Pei Yuan. Father, please calm your anger. Your health is of utmost importance. Pei Yuan looked at his second son, who was behaving with proper decorum and a steady demeanor, and his expression softened slightly. Zheng'e, did you learn the fist technique taught by the martial arts master today? Reporting to father, I have practiced it thoroughly. However, I noticed that the pivot in the third form feels somewhat sluggish. If faced with a sudden thrust from an enemy's long spear on the battlefield, I fear I might not be able to evade in time. I took the liberty of adjusting the footwork to a half-step sidestep. I humbly request father's guidance. Upon hearing this, a gleam of sharpness flashed in Pei Yuan's eyes. Oh, changed your steps. Come, demonstrate them in the courtyard for your father to see. Pei Zhen acknowledged the command and withdrew. Heading towards the courtyard, I kept my head down, continuing to sip my soup, not even sparing a glance with my peripheral vision for Su Moling and his mother in this martial family. It was the sword, spear, and staff that were the foundation of survival. What art, what mud, is worth anything before the iron hooves of the foreign invaders and the emperor's slaughtering blade? Pei Zhi's modifications were extremely ingenious. After reviewing it, Pei Yuan rewarded him on the spot with a treasured sword he had used in his youth. Su Moli watched from the hall and chuckled. Jiang Qing, you really know how to compete. Is it fun to force children to fight and kill every day, turning them into war machines? She looked down at me from above, her eyes filled with superiority. You people are trapped in this hierarchical system your entire lives. It's truly pitiful. Cheng'e will grow up to be a happy ordinary person. His life doesn't need to be dictated by these utilitarian things. I wiped the corner of my mouth, stood up, and gave her a slight bow. You are right, madam. The second young master is indeed slow-witted and can only make up for it through diligence. As for the eldest young master, being of noble birth, you will naturally plan a happy future for him. I emphasized the word happy heavily. Su Molly couldn't detect my sarcasm and instead raised her chin triumphantly. That's natural, my son. I want him to have the most complete and free personality. I retreated to my own courtyard, with Red Bin following behind, her anger undiminished. Auntie, the mistress is too arrogant. She's raised the young master into such a state. Yet she still mocks our second young master at every turn, and the Duke, too. Even though he's angry, he still lets her run wild. I gazed out the window at the pitch-black night, my voice devoid of warmth. Let her be. Pei Yuan is the Duke of the nation, personally appointed by the Emperor, wielding significant military power. The Emperor is naturally suspicious and most wary of those whose achievements overshadow the throne. The eldest son of the Duke's household is a good-for-nothing, neither scholarly nor martial. Only then can the Emperor rest easy. How could that old fox Pei Yuan not understand this principle? Red Bin was stunned. Then, if the second young master is so outstanding, wouldn't that make him a target of suspicion? I turned around and watched Pei Zheng wiping his precious sword under the lamp. The prince is deposed, and someone must uphold the future of the Duke's estate. Pei Yuan is testing, and the Emperor is watching. Pei Zheng's brilliance can only be shown to those who need to see it. Su Molly believed that her happy education was an advanced concept that stood out among the masses. She had no idea that she and her son had long since become two discarded pieces on the chessboard of imperial power, used to placate the emperor's suspicions. A discarded piece is doomed to be abandoned. A few days later, an edict came from the palace. On the occasion of the Empress Dowager's 60th birthday, special permission was granted for the wives of noble households to bring their children to the palace for the celebration. This was not merely a celebration, but also a covert examination where the royal family would observe the young men of noble households, selecting companions for the princes and princesses, and even potential suitors for the princesses. The news reached the duke's residence, and Pei Yuan specifically summoned Su Mo and me to his study. This time entering the palace is of great importance. Both Cheng'e and Zheng'e must go. Mo Li, you must keep a close eye on Cheng'e. The palace has strict rules, and there's no room for even a hint of recklessness. Pei Yuan's tone was stern, even carrying a hint of warning. Su Mo waved her hand impatiently. I know, it's just going out to eat. Why make it sound like going to the execution ground? Cheng'e is innocent and lively. The Empress Dowager will definitely like her. Older generations always prefer energetic children. Who would like those lifeless wooden dolls? She glanced meaningfully at Pei Zhen. Pei Zhen lowered his eyes, his expression unchanged. Pei Yuan's veins throbbed on his forehead, but he ultimately said nothing more, merely turning his head to look at me. Watch Zheng closely and be cautious with your words and actions. I understand, my lord, I replied obediently. On the day of the grand celebration, the imperial palace was adorned with lanterns and decorations. Su Mo dressed Pei Cheng in an extremely bizarre outfit. The wide sleeves were cut into short sleeves, and the hem of the robe was altered into knee-length shorts, exposing a section of his calves. She called this style casual sporty, convenient for the child to move around and not stifling his natural instincts. Pei Cheng, dressed in this incongruous attire, stood out sharply against the solemn and majestic palace gates. The surrounding officials' wives all turned their heads, whispering among themselves. Su Mo, however, paid no attention, and even pulled Pei Cheng to play hopscotch on the white jade steps outside the main hall. Mom, these steps are so big, perfect for jumping. Pei Cheng shouted loudly without any restraint. The elderly eunuch leading the way turned pale and hurried forward. To stop him, Your Highness, you mustn't. This is the imperial road outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Disturbing the Emperor's procession is a capital offense. Su Mo shoved the old eunuch aside. What's this nonsense about capital offenses? Superstition. A road is built for people to walk on, isn't it? What's wrong with letting a child play on it? Your service attitude here is terrible. The old eunuch stumbled and fell to the ground. I stood not far away, gripping Pei Zhen's hand tightly, shielding him behind me. Pei Zhen watched the noisy scene between the mother and son, and whispered to me, Mother, is Big Brother courting death? Shut up, lower your head, and don't look at anything, I reprimanded coldly. The doors of the grand hall slowly opened. The Emperor and the Empress Dowager sat regally on their high dragon throne and phoenix seat. Everyone knelt down in unison, shouting in unison, May the Emperor live 10,000 years, 10,000 times over. May the Empress Dowager live 1,000 years, 1,000 times over. Only Su Mo and Pei Cheng remained standing out like cranes among chickens. Not only did Su Mo not kneel, but she also pulled Pei Cheng to give a slight bow. Madame Su Mo of the Duke of Guo's residence, along with her son Pei Cheng, wishes the Empress Dowager a happy birthday and eternal youth. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. Pei Yuan, kneeling at the very front, was instantly drenched in cold sweat, his official robes soaked through. The Emperor's gaze darkened, exuding an aura of authority without the need for anger. Duke of the nation, is this the exemplary wife and heir you have raised? Pei Yuan abruptly kowtowed, his voice trembling. It is my failure in discipline, Your Majesty, please punish me. But Su Mo pulled Pei Yuan up forcefully and protested loudly. Pei Yuan, stand up, a man's knees are worth gold. Your Majesty, all men are equal. We are merely guests attending a birthday banquet. Why must we perform such servile prostrations? In my hometown, everyone is equal. No one is nobler than anyone else. As soon as these words were spoken, the officials gasped in shock. The Empress Dowager was so furious that she pounded her phoenix throne. How dare you, spouting nonsense in front of the Emperor? Guards, seize this madwoman for me. The Imperial Guards surged into the Grand Hall at that moment. A sudden change occurred, having always been taught by Su Moling to bravely express himself. Pei Cheng, for some unknown reason, suddenly found the courage to break through the guards' blockade and took several steps up the red stairs. He pointed his finger at the Emperor's nose and cursed loudly. "You wicked old man, what right do you have to arrest my mother? My mother said you're just a worker. The world belongs to the common people. Release my mother at once." The Emperor's face darkened with a terrifying gloom. He did not fly into a rage, he merely stared coldly at Pei Cheng, who was still struggling and shouting. "The world belongs to the common people. Am I just a laborer?" The Emperor laughed in fury, a sound that sent chills down one's spine. "Duke of Zhenghua, your fine son here is trying to overthrow my reign." Pei Yuan scrambled forward, rolling and crawling, and slapped Pei Cheng across the face with a forceful blow. "You wretched creature, kneel down and admit your mistake at once." 15-year-old Pei Cheng was struck so hard that blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, and stars danced before his eyes. Raised under Su Moling's happy education, he had never experienced such humiliation before. He burst into loud sobs. "Dad, you hit me, you're abusing me, I'm going to report you. Mom said there's a law to protect children." Su Moli broke free from the Imperial Guard's grip and, like a madwoman, rushed over to embrace Pei Cheng. "Pei Yuan, are you insane? How could you hit a child? You're destroying his self-esteem." She turned to glare at the Emperor. "Tyrant, the feudal society is a machine that devours people. You rulers with your heads full of privilege will sooner or later be crushed by the wheels of history." As soon as these words were spoken, the officials prostrated themselves on the ground. Trembling, the Empress Dowager was so enraged that she clutched her chest, pointing at Su Moling for a long time without being able to utter a word. The Emperor raised his hand and gently waved it. "Gag this madwoman's mouth. The son of the Duke of Zhenghua, Pei Cheng, has shown disrespect in the presence of the Emperor, committing a grave offense. Drag him out and beat him to death." A light-hearted sentence, deciding life and death in this magnificent palace. Human rights are an extremely ridiculous joke. The Emperor's will is the only law. The Imperial Guards pounced like wolves or tigers, grabbing Pei Cheng and dragging him out. Pei Cheng finally felt true fear. He struggled desperately, screaming in a heart-wrenching voice, "Mother, save me, mother. They're going to beat me to death." Su Moli was completely panicked. Her proud theory of equality crumbled before the cold, unyielding blades and armor. She couldn't understand why her brave act of defiance against authority hadn't earned her applause, but instead had brought her to the brink of death. "No, you can't kill him. He's just a child, and murder is against the law." Su Moli struggled with all her might, tearing at the Imperial Guard's garments. The Imperial Guards mercilessly kicked her in the chest. Su Moli was sent flying. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, she looked up at Pei Yuan, clutching at his hem. "Pei Yuan, speak up. That is your eldest son. You have military power in your hands. What are you afraid of, rebel?" Pei Yuan yanked his hem back sharply and, with a swift backhand, delivered another loud slap that sent Su Moling sprawling to the ground. "Wicked woman, not only do you want to destroy Pei Cheng, but you also want to sacrifice the lives of hundreds in the Duke's mansion." Pei Yuan knelt on the ground, his head pounding against the floor, the sound echoing loudly. "I have failed to properly govern my household, and I deserve 1,000 deaths. My rebellious son has committed an unforgivable offense, and he has brought this punishment upon himself. I harbor no resentment whatsoever and beg your majesty to see clearly. He had given up, a useless son, compared to the century-old foundation of the Duke of Zhen's estate, which was more important." Pei Yuan knew the answer. Outside the Grand Hall, the dull sound of the rod striking echoed, accompanied by Pei Cheng's heart-wrenching screams. 1, 2, 3. The executioner eunuch recited the count emotionlessly. Su Moli collapsed to the ground, despairingly covering her ears at that moment. She suddenly struggled to her feet and shouted toward the Emperor, "I have a secret. a secret that can grant you immortality. As long as you release my son, I will hand over the formula to you. Immortality. These four characters precisely struck at the most hidden desire of an emperor. The emperor's eyes flickered slightly. Stop. The sound of the beating outside the hall ceased abruptly. Pei Cheng was dragged in, his lower body covered in blood, barely clinging to life. Su Moling crawled over to embrace her son, tears streaming down her face. The emperor looked down at her, his voice cold and ruthless. Speak, and if you dare to utter a single falsehood, I will exterminate your entire clan. The hall was filled with the stench of blood, and Pei Cheng's moans were barely audible. Like a faint thread, Su Moling held him, lifting her gaze to the emperor on his dragon throne, her eyes blazing with a desperate resolve. Your Majesty, there is something in my hometown called antibiotics that can cure all diseases. There is also a procedure that can open the abdomen to replace internal organs. If you give me time, I can make it all happen. She knelt on the ground, incoherently, describing penicillin, organ transplants, and even in vitro fertilization. The entire court of ministers and officials listened in confusion, dismissing it as the ravings of a lunatic. The emperor's gaze shifted, transforming from cold indifference to a scrutinizing stare, and then to a dangerous spark of interest. Cut open the belly to replace the organs, he spoke slowly. Wouldn't that kill the person? No, no, with anesthesia, full body anesthesia, the person would be like sleeping, and when they wake up, the illness would be cured. Sumo Lee explained urgently. Your Majesty, this is science, not sorcery. Let me try, I'm sure to succeed. The emperor remained silent for a long time. Lock this madwoman in the cold palace and send someone from the Imperial Medical Bureau to listen to what she has to say. As for that useless prince, take him back to the Duke's residence to be cared for. As for the Duke of the State, Pei Yuan shuddered all over, for lax household governance. Forfeit 3 years' salary and reflect in seclusion. The Son of Heaven swept away with a flick of his sleeve. I knelt at the very back of the crowd, never raising my head or uttering a sound, only Pei Zhen beside me, his palm drenched in cold sweat. The journey back to the mansion was eerily silent inside the carriage. Pei Yuan sat in the main seat, his eyes closed, not uttering a word. Sumo Lee's venomous glare as she was taken away, and Pei Cheng's blooded, mangled lower body as he was carried out, kept flashing through my mind. Red Bin huddled in the corner, her face as pale as a ghost. Auntie, auntie, is what the mistress said true? Is there really a way to cure illnesses by cutting open the stomach? I opened my eyes and glanced at her. True or false, what does it matter? It's because she spoke those words that she has sealed her own fate. Red Bin didn't understand, and I didn't explain further. Sumo Lee thought she had grasped a lifeline. She had no idea that for a suspicious emperor, the phrase immortality was both a temptation and a death warrant. A miraculous person capable of replacing internal organs by cutting open the abdomen if they couldn't be used, they must be completely eradicated. The days that followed were outwardly calm, but beneath the surface, currents surged. Sumoli was confined in the cold palace. While the imperial physicians from the medical bureau visited her daily to attend her lectures, she drew diagrams, explained principles, and spoke of bacteria, microorganisms, and aseptic techniques. The physicians listened, exchanging bewildered glances, and upon returning, reported what this woman spoke of was unheard of, utterly beyond comprehension. The emperor did not kill her, nor did he release her. He simply sent someone every month to ask, have you made that antibiotic you spoke of? At first, Su Molly was full of confidence, asking for a petri dish, purification equipment, and various things she couldn't even name. Later, she grew anxious, her speech becoming incoherent. Later, she went mad. It is said that she would scream and shout all day in the cold palace. This is not scientific, it clearly exists. Why don't you believe me? I am a time traveler. I am the protagonist. Why are you, mere extras, imprisoning me? No one understood what she was saying. She must truly be mad. After Pei Cheng was carried back to the Duke's estate, he lay recovering in the main courtyard. Pei Yuan summoned the finest physicians in the capital and used the best medicines, ensuring his life was saved, but he was left crippled. That brutal flogging had injured his back, and he would never stand again in this lifetime. More importantly, his courage had been shattered. The young man who once dared to point his finger at the emperor and curse him, now trembled all over and howled under the covers at the mere sound of footsteps. "Don't hit me, don't hit me, I'll be good, I'll never play with mud again." Sue Molly's personal maids were either sold off or dismissed. The traces of equality and freedom in her courtyard were cleaned away overnight, leaving no trace, as if she had never existed that day. Pei Yuan called me to his study. He sat in his large armchair, looking at me with a complex expression in his eyes. "These years, you've been wronged." I lowered my head, neither humble nor overbearing. "Your Grace exaggerates. Your servant is not wronged. Zheng is very good." He paused. "A million times better than Cheng." I didn't respond. There are some things he can say, but I can't take the bait. After a moment of silence, Pei Yuan sighed. "Do you know if what Mo Li said is true?" I raised my head and looked at him. What does the Duke wish to ask? Those things that can cut open the stomach to cure illnesses, those methods that can grant eternal life, do they truly exist? I quietly observed him for a moment. Does the Duke believe it? Pei Yuan did not answer, and I let out a soft laugh. I don't know if such a thing exists, but I do know that if one truly possesses such abilities, it should be kept hidden and never spoken of for a lifetime. In this world, things that are too extraordinary are either deified or reduced to ashes. She lacks the ability to become a deity, so she can only turn to ash. Pei Yuan stared at me, his gaze intense. After a while, he looked away, leaned back in his chair, and wearily waved his hand. "Go, teach Zheng well." Yes, I left the study and stepped into the night. Red Bin led the way with a lantern, whispering, "Auntie, do you think the Duke regrets it?" "Regretting what?" "Regrets marrying the mistress." I gazed at the courtyard gate in the darkness ahead, my voice calm. It wasn't marrying her that he regretted, but believing her lies, letting her ruin the eldest son. But what could he do? The mistress was a marriage arranged by the emperor, a distant relative of the Empress Dowager's family. He could only watch helplessly as his eldest son, born of his lawful wife, was raised into a good-for-nothing, and as the Duke's estate faced the prospect of having no heir, he thought it was self-preservation, a way to show loyalty to the emperor. But he forgot that in the emperor's eyes, a duke's estate that truly discards its legitimate heir has no further value to exist. Red Bean was shocked. "Then, what should we do, us?" I paused in my steps, looking towards the main courtyard. There, once filled with laughter and joy, the mistress would play hawk catching the chick with the young master. Now, there was only deathly silence. "We don't need to do anything, just wait." This wait lasted until the following spring. The weather warmed, and all things came back to life. News from the palace also spread out. Sue Molly was dead, reportedly driven mad. She had run herself into a pillar in the cold palace, ending her life. The emperor sent a royal physician to examine her, and indeed, she was dead. And then there was nothing more. The death of a mad woman, in this deep palace, couldn't even stir a ripple in the water in the Duke's residence. Even the funeral was not grandly held. Pei Yuan submitted a memorial, stating that the mistress had passed away due to illness, and requested permission to mourn without resigning. The emperor granted approval with a single word and added, "The hereditary prince of the Duke of Zhangguo, Pei Cheng, is frail and ill. He is relieved of all duties and ordered to rest at home." With those light words, Pei Cheng's position as hereditary prince remained, but he was as good as dead, a prince who could never enter court, never take office, and never inherit the title. The future of the Duke's estate now rested entirely on Pei's shoulders. The day the news arrived, Pei Zhen was practicing his swordsmanship in the courtyard. He sheathed his sword, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and walked up to me. "Mother, is it true that elder brother is crippled?" I looked at him, a 15-year-old boy whose eyes already carried a hint of sharpness. "Do you feel it's a pity?" He shook his head. "It's not a pity, it's just that the mistress seems pitiful to me." Pitiful. She never understood until her death why her principles didn't work here. I fell silent for a moment, reaching out to brush the fallen leaves from his shoulder. "She's not understand, she's unwilling to understand. She thinks that because she comes from a more advanced world, she can judge everything from a position of superiority. She believes her reasoning is the truth." and everyone should listen to her, but she forgets that the ground beneath her feet belongs to this land. The rules she must face are the ones of this land. Rules can be changed, but they cannot be altered overnight, nor can they be changed based on a few slogans. She does not respect the rules of this land, and this land will not respect her life. Peiji nodded thoughtfully. I understand, father. I looked at him, and finally, a hint of a smile appeared in my eyes. Remember that. Go study now. You have to go to the Imperial Academy tomorrow. Yes, mother. And so, days passed one by one. Pei Zhang began to stand out at the Imperial Academy, excelling in both his essays and his horsemanship and archery. Pei Yuan started taking him to the military camp, introducing him to the seasoned veterans, teaching him how to lead troops and gain respect. Pei Zhang was determined and never complained about hardship or fatigue. The calluses on his hands grew thicker, the scars on his body increased, but he became increasingly composed. At 16, news came from the north. The Hu people had invaded the border. The emperor appointed Pei Yuan to lead the campaign, and Pei Zhang requested to accompany him. This was his first battle. The night before their departure, he came to bid me farewell. Mother, your son will leave tomorrow. I adjusted the straps of his armor, checking each one carefully. Be sharp on the battlefield. Don't be reckless. Don't rush ahead. Stay close to your father. Your son understands. I looked up at him in the candlelight. The boy's face had already taken on the contours of a man. Zheng'e, do you know why I made you learn these things? He paused for a moment. Because I am a concubine's son, and to live well, I must be stronger than others. I shake my head. Not just that. I want you to learn these things not to make you stronger than others, but to give you the freedom to choose. Someday in the future, you can choose to go to battle and achieve merit, or you can choose to step back and study to pursue academic excellence. You can choose to be kind to others, or you can choose to be ruthless. Only those with true ability have the right to make choices. Those without ability can only be chosen and abandoned by others. Peijin stared at me, his eyes slightly red. After a while, he took a step back, knelt down, and kowtowed heavily 3 times. Your teachings, mother, I will keep in my heart. I helped him up and wiped the dust from his forehead. Go, and return alive. Yes. He turned and left, his steps firm. I stood at the door, watching his silhouette fade into the night. Redbin wiped her tears beside me. Auntie, the second young master will definitely return safely. I turned back into the room, picked up the unfinished sole of the shoe, and continued sewing it stitch by stitch. The sound of the night watchman echoed outside, marking the 3rd watch of the night. Peijin should have already left the city by now. I lowered my head and continued sewing the sole of the shoe. The stitches were fine and dense, just like every night over these past dozen years. 3 months later, a great victory was achieved at the frontier. Pei Zhang earned merit, personally beheading 3 Hu chieftains and saving the besieged deputy general. The news reached the capital, causing a great uproar in the court. A 16-year-old boy, showing such courage on his first battle, was truly rare. The emperor was greatly pleased and bestowed upon Peijin the title of loyal and brave captain. Along with gold, silver, and silk, he was also granted the privilege of an audience with the emperor himself. That day, Peijin wore a newly made robe and followed Pei Yuan into the palace. I waited in the mansion, from morning till evening. It wasn't until the sky was completely dark that he returned. He knelt before me, his hands holding a brocade box. Mother, this is a gift from the emperor. Your son has brought it back for you. I opened the brocade box, revealing a jade hairpin. Inside, its entire body was lustrous and smooth, clearly a fine item from the palace. I picked up the hairpin and gently tapped it against his head. Keep it for yourself. Why give it to me? He raised his head, his eyes brimming with laughter. Everything about a son belongs to his mother. I looked at him, my eyes stinging with emotion. It had been over a decade from the moment he was a tiny infant wrapped in swaddling clothes. I knew that this child was my life. I watched over him day and night, teaching him to speak, to walk, to read and recognize characters. When he fell, I wouldn't let him cry, making him get back up on his own. When he fell ill, I stayed awake night after night, keeping vigil by his bedside. When he hurt his hand practicing with the sword, I scolded him for being clumsy while tending to his wound. Others say I am too strict and harsh with him, not like a real mother, but I know, in this cruel world, being lenient with him even a little would be doing him harm. Now, he has finally grown up. He has grown into a man of great stature and strength. Get up. I put away the jade hairpin, my voice calm. What kind of appearance is that? Kneeling, he stood up, looking at me. Mother, your son has an unreasonable request. Speak. Your son wishes to ask Mother to have his name recorded in the family genealogy. I was stunned. To be recorded in the family genealogy in this era, concubines have no right to be included in the family genealogy. Born as someone else's person, dead as someone else's ghost, serving the master while alive, not even a memorial tablet when dead. Paisian looked at me, his gaze firm. Today, in front of the emperor, your son sought a favor. The emperor, with his golden words, has granted your son military merit, allowing me to seek an honorable title for my mother. From this day forward, Mother is no longer a concubine but a legally wedded wife by my father's side, the rightful mistress of this duke's estate. My tears finally couldn't hold back any longer. I turned away, not wanting him to see. Silly child, why are you asking for this? He walked up to me and looked at me. Because I want my mother to know that for my entire life, I will always be her son, whether there is a genealogy or not, whether there is a title or not. I looked at him, seeing the tearful version of myself reflected in his eyes. After a while, I reached out and straightened his collar for him. All right, stop talking, go pay your respects to your father. He smiled and responded with a nod before turning to leave. I stood in the room, watching his retreating figure, my heart filled with a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Red bean brought in the tea and, seeing the tear stains on my face, was startled. Auntie, what's wrong? I wiped my face and took a sip of tea. It's nothing, just a gust of wind that got in my eye. Red bean glanced at the tightly closed window but didn't dare to ask further. A few more years passed. Paisian's reputation in the military grew ever louder, and his official rank climbed higher and higher. He married, had children, and moved out of the duke's mansion, establishing his own household. Yet, every month, he would return, bringing his wife and children to pay their respects to me. Pei Cheng still resided in the main courtyard, bedridden, entirely dependent on others for his every need: eating, drinking, relieving himself. He had completely lost his mind, constantly muttering about something called time travel, which no one could understand. Pei Yuan was old now and no longer involved in the affairs of the household. He spent his days tending to flowers and feeding birds, occasionally visiting Pei Cheng and returning with a sigh. The old lady returned from Wutai Mountain, and upon seeing me, she took my hand, unable to speak for a long time. These years have been hard on you. I smiled and shook my head. It's not bitter. It really isn't bitter compared to those years of living in constant fear. These days are like climbing out of hell and into heaven. That day, Pei's brought his young grandson to visit me. The little one was over 3 years old, with a chubby, lively face. As soon as he saw me, he ran over, calling out grandmother in a sweet, childish voice. I picked him up and kissed him on the cheek. Good boy. Grandmother made you a new outfit. Would you like to try it on? Yes. I led him by the hand into the house. As we passed through the main courtyard, we happened to see someone carrying Pei Cheng out to bask in the sun. He was slumped in his chair, his head tilted to the side, drooling from the corner of his mouth, his eyes blankly staring at the sky. My young grandson curiously asked, Grandmother, who is that? I looked down at him, my voice gentle. That's your uncle. Why is uncle lying on the chair? Because he's sick and can't walk. Will he get better? I remained silent for a moment, then gently touched his head. No, he won't. The little grandson nodded, half understanding, and then skipped forward, jumping and running. I stood still, looking in Pei Cheng's direction. The sunlight was just right, bathing him in its glow, yet it couldn't penetrate the emptiness in his eyes. He seemed to sense something and slowly turned his head to look at me. His mouth opened slightly, uttering a faint, indistinct syllable. Mother. I withdrew my gaze and turned to leave. Behind me, the sound of the maids scrambling echoed. The young master has wet himself again. Quickly change his clothes. Really, taking care of him every day is exhausting. I didn't turn back at night. I Sat alone by the window, gazing at the moon in the sky, Redbin attended to me from behind, whispering, "Madam, lady, what are you thinking about?" I thought for a moment and then smiled softly. "I was thinking about that woman named Sue Moling." Redbin was startled. "Madam, why are you thinking about her?" "It's nothing." Just suddenly recalling some things she said. "What did she say?" "She said that everyone is equal and has the right to grow up happily." Redbin pursed her lips. "That's all nonsense. Madam, don't believe it." I looked at the moon outside the window, my voice very soft. "What she said isn't entirely wrong. People should indeed grow up happily and should indeed have the freedom to choose. But she got the order wrong. It's not that freedom comes first, and then one gains ability. It's that ability comes first, and then one gains freedom. She let Pei Cheng play with mud freely, not study freely, and behave without rules freely, but she never thought. When one day this freedom needs to be defended with ability, what will Pei Cheng use to defend it? Freedom in this world has always been the privilege of the strong." Redbin nodded, though she seemed only half understanding. I didn't speak again. The moonlight spilled like water over the window frame. I thought of many years ago, the day Sue Molly first awoke. She wore strange clothing and stood in the courtyard, shouting at the sky, "I've finally crossed over. I'm the protagonist. I'm going to change this world." The maids and matrons were so frightened that they all knelt down, thinking she had been possessed by an evil spirit. She looked at the servants kneeling on the ground, her face full of disbelief. "Why are you kneeling? Get up, everyone is equal. You are not inferior to me." No one dared to stand up. She became even angrier, pulling them up one by one, muttering as she did so, "Feudal remnants, truly feudal remnants." I stood under the eaves, watching her from afar. She saw me and waved, "Hey, you sister over there, come here and tell them not to kneel." I didn't move, only bowed from a distance. She paused for a moment, then smiled. "You too, you've been brainwashed." I didn't explain, just turned and left. It wasn't until later that I found out she came from a very distant place. A place called the 21st century. There was no emperor, no kneeling, no bowing. Everyone could speak freely, live freely. She wanted to bring everything from there. To hear what she didn't know was that this was not her 21st century. The soil here could not grow her freedom. The seeds she planted would only bear deformed fruit in the end. She was crushed to death by her own fruit. I looked up at the moon in the sky. The moon was still the same moon, exactly as it had been hundreds or even thousands of years ago, but the people beneath the moon changed, one generation after another. Some died, while others lived. Some went mad, while others awakened after hearing the two stories above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.